honestly just sort of like, I feel like Disney has this sort of sense of like, all right, come at me. We won the last time. You fucking
basically
the last time.
You're basically sitting here like, come at us, bro. I'm just giggling like, I'm like, Gina, honey, darling, what? Your big debut on Daily Wire went what? Triple cardboard and saran wrap? I think that film made about 70,000 max.
I heard it wasn't the worst movie in the world. You know, like I heard from some people who were trying to remain objective that it was actually okay, which is kind of the best you can hope for. But they also retooled their entire company just so they could come out with Lady Ballers a year later.
And then they did that. Yeah. Then they did that. And I'm just sitting here like, and the funny thing is, what people don't know about Lady Ballers is it was supposed to have been a documentary, but they couldn't find enough shit to satisfy their goddamn transphobic point of view.
Yeah, none of the guys who were into it were willing to put themselves through even pretending to be trans for this supposed documentary.
And they couldn't do it.
The point, of course, when they're talking about this in that interview, the point just goes, shh. Like, maybe it's just a thing you made up to be mad about.
Absolutely. Like I said, clitoris got about 8,000 nerve endings. Ain't none of them as sensitive as a conservative man on the internet.
Well, I mean, they'll never be able to make that observation
firsthand. Yeah, that's an observation that they'll just have to go on faith about, because I don't know if they'd ever be able to find one to begin with.
So I just before we went to show, the news came out that the Republicans failed in their vote to impeach Mayorkas, which has been this whole to-do for months upon months.
This man cannot count. Like, honestly, like, you, sir, all that fancy right-wing education and you can't count.
Their complaint about, Mayorkas and Biden's so-called dereliction of duty over the border is just the fact that encounters are up. Okay. That's kind of bound to happen when you have such an incredible amount of economic destabilization in these areas that people are fleeing from through the course of maybe a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic that can destabilize the economies of many countries, on top of all the usual reasons people migrate.
And the fact that right now, probably some countries that don't have the infrastructure to handle raised temperatures, the droughts in places there shouldn't be drought, and the flooding in places where there really shouldn't be flooding.
Well, they always come to this because of the extreme temperature and the extreme storms that happen during this time of year. They always come, oh, it's hotter, it's colder because it's hot. Like, I know you guys aren't good at like second and third level thinking, but like that's actually a thing. The reason
that's a problem. That's a thing that can become a problem.
Like 3 feet, 4 feet things of snow every winter is because Lake Erie used to freeze over and now it doesn't. So all these storms are picking up the moisture from those lakes and dumping it on these cities where before it wouldn't be able to pick it up because it would have been frozen. Like everything with these people is either deliberate obfuscation, like they know, but they got to pretend they don't know to make it sound.
Or they don't know how to observe a goddamn thing.
Snowball, like, oh, snowball mean no warming. Or it's people who actually are that stupid and don't understand, like, yo, it's not like the globe is turning up the thermostat 2 degrees and everybody is always 2 degrees warmer. So we can dispense with that nonsense.
That fact. It's the fact that, it used to be that you would get a predictable period of, I'm not going any goddamn where because there's snow. Now it's like places there hasn't been a decent enough snowfall.
We had
And
a weird
that's
situation where we are, which is that weren't having almost any snowfall, and then we got like 12 inches dumped on us, like just in one storm.
so about a Drake size amount of snowfall.
I don't talk about that man for just all I'm just gonna say. I'm Team Megan. Fuck Drake. Fuck
I
Nicki.
am also fuck Drake, but I am also very much Team Megan. I see and honor the hot girls and their degrees.
Yeah, but he
Born
is
out of grief.
legendarily hung, much like Bill Hader. It's
But
permeated.
I'd rather hook up with Bill Hader though.
I think many people. I mean, he's with Ali Wong now, right?
Good for Allie.
Good for both of them.
I mean, like I said, Bill Hader, if he was on the market and if it was offered to me, I would take it. Nothing personal. Just, it would be a thank you. I appreciated that. I'm losing your number. That was wonderful. I do appreciate it though.
I'll call his agent. I'll let
him know. You can use my name. You can use my name in a review and give it four stars and no one will ever know the difference.
But I mean, speaking of that Daily Wire shit and Megan Thee Stallion, what is with Nicki suddenly going hard for Ben Shapiro's rap fucking song?
Listen, Nicki, I don't want to be that person, but I'm going to be that person. Nicki.
You mean a person who has access to the sex offender registry and can look up her
sex offender husband and brother. Nicki, I'm not apologizing for Nicki, but I will say this. Nicki's mom left her in Trinidad up until she was 5. She was abandoned at some critical points in her life. So this is basically somebody looking for the mama figure she never had, and she's taking it out on people who have mother figures who may have died, but
there's an element of hurt people, but at a certain point,
that part,
she's a grown adult, and
that part too.
Much like Ted Nugent going on about how horrible and pedophilic, the Democrats and all those people are. Like you wrote a song
mean Mr.
about
Wang Dang Sweet Poon. Ho. Let's throw this in reverse. Throwing this in reverse. So you're telling me Mr. Wang Dang Sweet Poon Tang
and thank me, crank me, but don't wake me up to thank me. Another masterpiece.
Yeah, so we're talking Mr. I dated a 16-year-old and also I shit my pants. So I shit my pants on purpose so I wouldn't be able to serve in Vietnam. Had something to say about pedophilia other than tips on how to get away with it?
To be honest, I actually don't know of a specific quote. It's just the QAnon level bullshit he spews.
Okay. Because I'm just looking at this like,
and
is
the
we really talk about
he has
this?
Cast on rap music in general in the past, as and it's just like I don't fucking know, dude.
Has this man ever looked at his own music catalog? Was he that zonked out when he wrote his own lyrics?
I will say that Wang Dang Sweet Poontang is actually a pretty tight rocker. I
mean, if you're like in high school, yeah, sure. But then again, maybe that was what his audience was. Or at least that was his target demographic. Huh?
It's sex positive.
For who though?
Here to anybody, I'm clearly being somewhat sarcastic about that. Yeah, like, look, there's to a certain extent when it comes to people like Nicki, when it comes to people like Ted Nugent, when it's like you're gonna have to take the artist away from the art for almost everybody in the music industry. Otherwise, there's just going to be nothing you can fucking listen to.
That part.
To that extent, there are plenty of artists I listen to who I know are horrible people. Led Zeppelin, one of my favorite bands. Jimmy Page has got a standing appointment in hell. And, like, So
I still occasionally find myself listening to, God forgive me, Eric Clapton.
I find it boring as fucking shit, but I understand that people like him, and I am not going to judge that. Also, a
That
horrible
racist
human being,
motherfucker. Oh
but
God, yes.
I like also a whiny little bitch.
God
Like,
Almighty, I have never heard him. Like you would think the drugs would have mellowed him out. It did not.
he got worse since Layla. Oh, we'll talk about Taylor later, but people can give Taylor so much shit about all she does is sing and whine about her exes. And I'm like, Eric Clapton put together an entire band to sing a song about how badly he wanted to fuck his best friend's wife.
Yeah, all I know is I have my issues with Taylor. Some of my issues with Taylor only one of my issues with Taylor are warranted. The rest of them are just okay. I guess this is what we're doing.
She really
today.
capitalized off that Beyonce shit in a way that was kind of skeevy. As much as you could say Kanye shouldn't have gone up there, like she should have offered a lot more support for Beyonce, who was also embarrassed by that.
That part. I mean, I'm sure they texted a Kiki back and forth. I'm sure they have a surface level texty buddy relationship, but that's great.
But we'll get to the Taylor part a little later.
Let's
go back to
let's stick a pin in that and move on.
Yeah, the Mayorkas failed impeachment is just kind of going towards that whole Republican immigration hypocrisy. And I've said it; it's become a mantra on this show that pointing out Republican hypocrisy is like shooting fish in a barrel. It's not going to convert anybody who is.
It's really not.
But it does bear talking about. It's sort of like fact checking Trump. It's
also just going on record. There's nothing wrong with going on record because that you need to have some evidence that we did have that the conversation was at least had.
Yeah, if you don't talk about it, you've essentially ceded the ground. So
that part.
With that in mind, I want to talk about the last 3 years of Republicans complaining that Biden has allowed the border to go to shit. And let's be clear, Title 42 was in full effect until less than a year ago. And it was the entire time since he started office, they started really quickly, within months, talking about how, the Biden is so terrible.
They didn't even wait 6 months.
No. He made for the first couple of years, he not only made no meaningful change, he made no change to border policy.
Zero.
He tried to keep Title 42 reinstated or keep it instated. It eventually was rescinded, but now he's trying to push this bill, which will allow him to basically put Title 42 into effect, or effectively put it into effect whenever border crossings reach a certain level. We won't get into the specifics of the bill. Suffice it to say that it does give a large amount. I mean, almost like 90% of what Republicans have ever asked for in a border bill.
Yeah, it's basically everything in your cake. Like, listen, if your border bill has the Border Patrol union supporting it, if it has the Wall Street Journal saying, bitch, this is the best you gonna get. If you have at least those two, a rational Republican Party would have said, yeah, no, let's come on, let's go to the table and get this shit signed, because they might change their minds on this one. Like,
especially a rational. Most prior immigration reforms have ceded a lot of ground to Republicans, but also advanced protections for things like DACA, or advanced protections for allowing some form of relief for legal avenues of immigration. This does none of that. And
absolutely not.
This is a wet dream for Republicans. And all of a sudden, this is Lucy in the football. Was it Lucy in the football?
Yes, it is Lucy in the football. They're letting the football be taken from them because they think Trump's gonna come in on the white horse, or the white horse with the shit's covered saddle, and give them a moat with alligators or some shit. I don't know.
I mean, the bottom line is that the border for most of modern history through the 90s was essentially a place where you'd have a lot of movement of migrant workers across the border in seasonal shifts, basically. They'd come, they'd work the jobs where they were needed, and then they would return home.
Yeah.
It has become a lot stricter at the border, a lot more, for lack of a better term, militarized, especially in Texas. It has become a lot harder for migrant workers to come over. And so they're essentially saying, eliminate migrant workers. Well, I mean, except for our friends who donate to us, they really want them to be here, but we got to pretend like, we don't want them.
Yeah, we eliminate migrant workers. We're going to use children instead. That's what's happening. And people don't want to have that conversation that we're going back to the Dickensian, sir, may I have some more era exactly.
I had to do the voice.
I understand. But yeah, and what people are thinking is these laws are not for McKaylee. They're not for Justin the Trust Fund babe the third. They're not for those kids. This is for Janice on the reservation. This is for Keisha. This is for Vanessa. This is for kids who are on the margins. And that's what, there's just something even worse and even less savory about it. And they're going to put the squeeze on, and with many of the states turning down federal food aid for children through the summer. And yes, Hell World, Florida is one of them.
Oh, fuck them kids. They should be working in the factories of the mines.
Basically, yeah. Basically, they're doing that in order to force these kids on the margins to work.
Make them.
I don't know what kind of this is the kind of shit that would make Charles Dickens rise from the grave and summon 3 other spirits to take care of some shit. Because this is nuts.
Well, there's also the element of that they've really played up the national security aspect of the border, because, I mean, border crossings, migrant workers have typically, it's an economic issue. Mm-hmm. They framed it in the George Bush era of people doing the work Americans don't want to do,
which wasn't a lie. It wasn't a lie.
Now, forgetting about that, in the era, even after 9/11, it was still framed that way. But the border has become more of a national security issue. Never mind that the September 11th terrorists came here on valid visas. They were not border jumpers. No, never mind any of that. We're talking about how they have framed this as a national security issue to the point where they tried and failed today to impeach Mayorkas. So if it's such an urgent national security issue, I mean, they talk about how we've had so many X number of known border jumpers or whatever they're calling them that were on the terror watch list. And another diversion, but you know who was on the terrorist list until like the last 15 years? Nelson fucking Mandela. So I don't give a lot of credence to that fucking list. And it's also not known terrorists. It's like people who, hey, we might want to keep them on. Forgetting all of that. It is a national security issue of great concern to them. Suddenly, it's not so great a concern. Suddenly, it can wait for the president because Trump really wants this to be a campaign issue. But what they can do is put up a bill that says that Hamas are not allowed in the United States and get that through a near unanimous vote. The thing, of course, is that people who are in Hamas are already not allowed in the United States.
Yeah, I was like, wasn't that already a law?
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, wasn't that part of the Patriot Act back? Like, didn't we already go through this?
I know that Ilhan Omar and I can't remember who the other one who voted no on that was, but there were only 2 no's and a present. I get why they voted no, and they even articulated this is performative bullshit. They're already not allowed.
It is.
Although I will say, from a media literacy standpoint, you vote present for that. You don't vote no.
Yes.
But that's a personal quibble. I get it. They're taking
no. I mean, honestly, if we're coming up into an election year, the fact that you did not vote, that instead of voting no present, you voted no is kind of bad. I know if that were me, I would have voted present and been like, we did this already. That's why I voted present. Thank you. Follow me on Twitter.
But it just goes to show that, the border is such great concern that we need to close it right away. only we're not giving the Title 42 tools back to Biden in this form of this new bill
at
that
all.
gives us everything we want. We're calling it a, we're letting X number of migrants in bill. I'm like, they're coming, motherfucker. The bill is supposed to be a way to slow the spigot. Now, we're not going to have the conversation of whether we think, X number of people should be allowed in, should be allowed at, through the border.
Ellis Island closed. We don't do that. We're not supposed to be doing that shit.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
I am not a closed border person. You can call me an open borders person. I'm not an open borders person. What I mean is I think we need an incredibly much better funded system to allow people to come across, seek asylum, and get their claims heard within
that part.
X number of months,
of days.
years, not
like you should be able to get in and out in 180 days, in about 180 to 200 days. You should not be waiting this long.
There is absolutely a difference between people who are seeking asylum and, having a system that robust would allow you to determine what claims are legitimate and what claims are not.
Part.
Done. And migrant workers, we need to allow a system that allows them into this country in a way where we know where they're coming through, ports of entry. You can't just say, we're going to put up a wall. Also, people can't come in and have their cases heard or in any way, come in or out within, X number of years. You've got people who came here the correct way, who haven't seen full citizenship after 15 years, 16 years, 17 years.
20.
Yeah.
They're 20, 25. People have been...
So it's a broken system. You want real immigration reform. You fix the sheer, not only just the backlog that we have, but like you fully fund the amount of people necessary to allow people to come in. Because like it or not, they don't want it because, well, I mean, they're not white people coming in. Let's face it. It's that it's that shit that keeps talking about replacement and,
we don't want other people's children. No, bitch.
I realize that Elon Musk is single-handedly trying to increase the population in this country, but
he's doing a shitty job of it. I have a feeling a good chunk of his baby mamas and his children will not be speaking to him when all is said and done.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, the level of transparent hypocrisy and again, shooting fish in a barrel, pointing out the hypocrisy, but it has to be done. I think the bigger problem is Biden meeting them so close to the way they are. The idea that the border is somehow uniquely in crisis in a way that
it's really not. Like, at least I'm like, Fox didn't even drag out the caravans this time. So what are we doing here? There's no caravans. So either they know we don't do that, either they know we're on to them, or they're still workshopping a new set of terms.
Well, I mean, it's a Democrat president, so we can't. I lost my train of thought. I was trying to find a way to get into that Chadwick Boseman. We don't do that here when it comes to claims. It's sort of like how they claimed Ebola was this big horrible thing when Obama
was president, and it turned out that it was like 3 people died because between him and Bush working out, this is how we're going to handle a pandemic. They actually handled the pandemics.
I think it's a mess, and it's all blatant hypocrisy. If the border is such a problem, vote for the bill. Of course, I don't want them to vote for a bill. It's a horrible bill. It is an absolutely horrible bill.
It's a trash bill, but
one of the things it does is defund UNRWA, and it's a really big thing right now to report with credulity the idea that 12 workers of UNRWA have ties to Hamas and participated in the 10/7 terrorist attacks. The one thing I have to say to that is that this is based on a single confidential report that was leaked and had absolutely zero corroborating evidence within it. Now, that is not to say that no evidence exists and cannot ever be proven.
Yeah, but
to say, given Israel's history of blatant, outright falsehoods and lies,
I was gonna say
I see the proof of those identifying things that you say allowed you to determine that these people participated in 10/7. I need a little more fucking information.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really not one to believe the Israeli state, especially considering how much they have. They make a big thing about having no love for the UN, calling the UN the useless nations and all the rest of it. But all of a sudden, y'all want to trust them when it comes to getting rid of this agency, one of the few agencies that actually helps the regular locals of Gaza. Okay. Nobody wants to actually look at this. Nobody actually wants to say, "Hey, listen, this particular state has had it out for these people, and now they all of a sudden, and they've had it out for our organizations and affiliated organizations, but now they want us to do something." Nobody's getting the hint of street smarts here. Nobody.
Part of it is, again, there's this sort of binary choice made by vociferous defenders of Israel that tells you that
that is
criticizing Israel, you must be in some way excusing what Hamas perpetrated on 10/7. Not even
close.
You can find or parrot out the one or two idiot college freshmen who might say something fucking stupid.
That's a good chunk of Twitter.
They say may be stupid, but the broader point of facts is that Israel has done nothing to deserve the sheer, undying credulity with which our media and most media around the world treats their press releases and their. I mean, Shireen Abu Akleh was murdered by an Israeli sniper or Israeli shooter, and the sheer amount of lies that came out from Israel about what happened over the course of months and months and months until definitive video and audio proof was able to say, y'all motherfuckers did this.
And then they're like, oops. That's it's like this. The Israeli state, because they have done so much skill exchange with organizations of varying moral stripes, and I mean that in a very unhospitable way.
They were allied very closely with apartheid-era South African government.
Like I said, with various government state actors of varying moral stripes. People really do forget that they've gotten in bed with some very unsavory characters.
And the binary choice that comes across is when you are criticizing Israel, you are somehow giving breathing room to Hamas. No. If some individual idiot college freshman somewhere says that Hamas is resistance or blah, 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 that's some idiot college freshman.
Not really, no.
Yeah. We're talking about, the people who actually say stupid shit like that are, number one, few and far between. Number two, don't have any power whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But the issue is, and I'm making another tangent, but one of the things that comes across when you're doing this is to talk, okay, why aren't you this vociferous? You're so anti-Israel, but why aren't you so vociferously anti-other genocides like Darfur, like China, like everywhere? We don't have a broad coalition of politicians.
They don't have a PR department
trying to tell you that this is not genocide.
They don't have a PR department.
Someone is saying this is not genocide, and if you say that, you are somehow racist. So
the people perpetuating those genocides don't have a PR department.
You put it so much.
They don't have a PR department.
You said what I tried to say in 45 sentences in one. So
I'm saying this as a victim of the PR. And I don't mean a victim as in I was hurt, but I'm saying this as I now have a list of shit to unlearn.
I mean, we all do. To a certain extent, when it comes to Israeli criticism, it's hard to separate yourself. One of the things, for a long time, the only time I ever heard anybody talk about Zionism was basically Nazis, who that was their code word for Jews.
Yeah.
Not actual Zionism, but just Zionism is Jews, Jews
Yeah.
and Zionists.
Yeah, in other words,
etc.
Yeah, they were doing a kind of reductio move that left you kind of like, well, I can't ever really say anything about Zionism. And then if you grew up in the church, you end up kind of being kind of streamlined into it. And then by the time you actually learn anything, by the time you actually get a better view of everything, you're just like, yo. And then you become somebody like me who's like, okay, I've read my Bible. I know I know I have vague points of history. Why are y'all still acting like this?
There is no degree of discourse that is going to untangle the sheer amount of fuckery that happens when you create an ethno-state that does horrible, horrible things in the world. Because inevitably, bad actors are going to say, look at the ethnicity that makes up the ethno-state. It is their fault. And then you can't untangle those bad actors from legitimate criticisms of the ethno-state.
And that's why sometimes every time I mention it, I usually say the Israeli state, the Israeli government, the Israeli state, the Israeli government. So that way most people will be like, okay, if she's talking about the government, okay, it's a way to kind of push them into a corner to say, am I talking about the average? No, I'm not. I am talking about the Israeli government. I am talking about the Israeli army. I am talking about those entities.
Like, does Israel have the right to defend itself? Of course it fucking does, but this isn't defense. And they're talking about, does Israel have the right to exist? No state has the right to exist. People have the right to exist. Israelis have the right to exist.
That part.
To that extent, Hamas came in and unexisted a bunch of them. That's fucking horrific. What they did was horrific, and no one is
exactly
that. And again, you find the two college freshmen that you want to put as the mouthpiece for all criticism of Israel and say, you're all just like that. You're all clearly in the pocket for Hamas. I'm like, no, idiots are saying idiot things, but legitimate criticism is legitimate criticism.
Yeah.
Let's put it here that the actions of Israel as a government, as a state, are horrific fascist attacks. And the fact is, they happen all over the world, everywhere you go. People are dying in Darfur, they're dying in Yemen, they're dying in China. But
Ethiopia, Congo.
Have an entire ecosystem of media and politics,
social media,
that are willing to carry water for these horrible acts.
Yeah, media, social media, celebrities, influencers. Like, I think about the fact that there are certain, like, obscure, certain semi-obscure, well, she's not really that obscure. Like, I know I can't listen to Netta anymore. I had a whole burlesque number plan for that, but that's not happening.
There's all sorts of things that horrible people do or say, but you know what? Again, going back to separating art from the artist, like, it's just thinking, Dave Chappelle, oh my God, he really has been on one for the last 7 years, but nothing will take away from the fact that from 1998 through like 2005, he was on and no one. So when Dave Chappelle, Dave Chappelle has always been horrible. I'm like, don't do
that. Not really. No, there was a period where Dave Chappelle was the GOAT. Everyone remembers that period that you talk about. Yeah, that was the Dave. That's the Dave Chappelle that That's the Dave Chappelle that for many of us have put that Dave Chappelle under glass and said, that's the Dave Chappelle I remember. I don't know this fool over here, but this is the dude. I remember this person.
Some of the bits may be dark in retrospect, but Louis C.K.'s funny shit is still funny to this day. Not a funny person, not a good person.
No, he's not. Not even.
But let's.
I think we can say that about a good chunk of comedians. I don't know whether it's the fact that they're all either secretly into girls or guys that are way too young for their own damn good, or they're just Chris D'Elia, Jeffrey Ross.
That one hasn't hit the mainstream yet, but we've all heard of the stories. That's not as much of a mainstream, like, Jeffrey Ross's proclivities are not as mainstream as Chris D'Elia's.
I thought everybody knew about Jeffrey. Oh.
Everybody knows, but it's sort of like how everybody knew Bill Cosby was a rapist. It didn't hit the critical mass necessary to have a deleterious effect on his career. Not until, I mean, let's face it. We all remember 2005 when that shit came out about Bill Cosby, but nothing happened. People said, "Oh, it's just a hit job because he's saying some truths on Fox News that conservatives like." And then it took a male comedian. Again, love Hannibal Buress. I'm not saying it's a bad
Hannibal
thing,
Buress,
but it is kind of sad that it took him.
The Pride of Philadelphia, Hannibal Buress.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that it took him like 9 years after the original accusations started coming to light to really break the critical mass, and that hasn't happened for Jeff Ross yet.
No, it hasn't. That's true. All I know is that I guess what it is.
I was on page one. I was on fucking page one for Kevin Spacey, though. I'm gonna say that you are my witness.
Always literally going to stand. You are literally going to stand before the Lord Himself and be like,
called it. You are
literally going to stand before the Lord Himself, arms folded, and say, "But did I not? Did I not, Lord?"
It was the story he told about getting mugged, like 15 years ago. He told the story about getting mugged, and I'm like, there's some suspicious shit about that. That dude's probably a creep.
All I know is that it was a case of all I know is that I will never forget Coconut Grove Theater was supposed to have brought on Kevin Spacey as director. I, to this day, and I've often thought about crawling into Billy Corbin's DMs and asked, did somebody on the board know about Kevin Spacey? And that's why we let that go.
Well,
I'm firmly convinced. Huh?
It's just like the same thing with Harvey Weinstein and Jeff Ross. Jeff Ross is at the Harvey Weinstein early level where everyone knew, but not enough people know.
Yeah. And because Jeff Ross, I don't want to say regional, but he does 95% of his work is live stand-up. He doesn't really do a lot of film, do a lot of TV, maybe because they all know and they want to contain it in case, but he mostly does stand-up. It's like mostly the hardcore stand-up heads who know about Jeffrey Ross.
And it's like the stuff with like Amy Schumer said some shit early in this about, now I think it was Amy Schumer who's talking shit about how, we give them water, we give them food, and it's like, motherfucker, you won't let them dig wells, you won't let them make power plants,
you kill their sheep, you destroy their olive trees.
The fuck are you fucking talking about? Horrible human being she has turned out to be. But all the same, that fucking special she did when she was pregnant, hilarious. Still a hilarious special.
I will give her that. I mean, like I said, I like pretty soon all we're gonna have left is like Jim Gaffigan.
That's just it. And they're the reason I say, and I think there are people who will say like, no, you have to draw a line, like horrible genocidal people or whatever, or people who carry water for genocide are people you should not ever, like, I'm not giving anybody any money. It's just the fact that this world is full of horrible people making art, and art is one of the only things. Art and love are like the two things that'll make life
worth getting out of bed for.
Continuing. Like,
I'm gonna say is that as the Boulay brothers said, blank is art and art is subjective. We are not judging you on your art. We are judging you on your art as it applies to this challenge. In other words, comedy is art and art is subjective. I'm judging Amy Schumer on her comedy as it applies to the fact that a government that she cares about is hurting actual human beings.
Yeah. Like, the reason I'm so vociferously vocal about Israel is because let's be clear, they have done horrible shit to Palestinians for decades.
Yeah.
This is an escalation And again, yes, you'll say, well, who started the escalation? Like, well, it's been ongoing, but let's even forget about that. If you wanted an actual response to 10/7, this is not it. What has happened is 2,000 people are dead. More than half of them are women and children. And
a lot of doctors. And I'm just sitting here reposting the Cardi B gif of what was the reason?
Well, like, again, it's really people give every piece of news that comes from Israel, and it's just like, man, they really fought hard against the accusation that they bombed that hospital. And it's just like they bombed every other
hospital, and now there are actually no hospitals left.
I mean, their targeting of hospitals goes back on and on and on. There was the Children's Hospital they bombed in 1982 in Lebanon. I think it was in Lebanon. And it's just like, this is not an oopsie. This is targeted. And so people can say, if what Hamas did was so bad, and it was, why do you need to lie about it? What purpose does it serve? And the purpose is dehumanizing the people that you're going to commit a genocide against, because this is not defense. This is an excuse.
Basically. It's a big, ugly genocide with a cute little loincloth.
Hamas, whatever their motives, probably slipping power, whatever their motives in doing this, at this time, at that scale, gave Israel a gift wrapped in a neat little bow.
Very much so. And I'm just going to say this, like, they're not like this. The Israeli government and its PR arms aren't even giving us the justification of, oh, the Iron Dome stopped a bomb today. Like, they're not. They've moved past that, boo boo. They are past the
And I should say to stop myself, I'm not saying that what they did was a gift to Israelis. They slaughtered Israelis. I'm saying to the Israeli government. I feel like I shouldn't have to specify that.
No, but it's always good.
It's always good. Taking shit out of context, and it's always good. Hamas. Like, no, the world would be better off without Hamas. But also, this is how you get Hamas.
Yeah, like, now you've just ensured that the next generation, that there's going to be another generation of people who are going to remember having to drink boiled seawater if they were lucky.
80% of Hamas are orphans. How did they get that way? And I am not saying that this justifies Hamas.
It doesn't.
I'm saying this is how you get Hamas.
This is not a justification. It's an explainer. In other words, in 10, 25 years, if we all hold out that long, those kids that you see running around are going to be blowing up discotheques and streets, because this is what y'all just thought was this is what the government thought was a good idea at the time.
Because when the retaliation comes, when the blowback comes, whether it's immediately, whether it's 20 years from now, when a generation, when it comes, if 20 years, the descendants of this, whatever they're called, if they're still called Hamas or anything else, whatever they do, when they come and they slaughter another batch of civilians, it will be equally unjustified, but it will have been fucking predictable.
Yeah, I think let's put it like this. If I were a horrible person, I would be walking to my local bet shop in the UK, because in the UK, supposedly you can do this, and I would be making my wagers now. I'm not even playing. I wish I were. I would be putting down a couple quid or a couple euros, saying, listen, 25 years.
No, not euro anymore.
I'd be putting down a couple quid and saying, listen, all right, 25 years from now, 20 to 25 years from now, terrorist attack, Israel, it's going to kick off another 6 to 8 month round of bullshit. And I'd win. I wouldn't win much, because at least 500 other motherfuckers would have thought about the same thing too, but I would win. I know that. That's how predictable it is. It's so predictable, I could literally probably walk down, make a wager on it, and make money.
Ultimately, what needs to happen is not what's going to happen.
At all.
I know that there is a contingent of people who believe that because of the historic persecution of Jews, there needs to be a safe haven for them in the world. That may be true, but it can't be built on the confiscation of land, which is where this started, because contrary to what the historians or the accepted historians of Israel will tell you, Palestine wasn't just some deserted place. It wasn't a country. And I'm like,
Country, yeah.
Okay, like what constitutes a country? It's not like just like something that the UN fucking made up. You know, there were people, they were there. But yeah, but you know, Jews historically were indigenous there. So were fucking other people. So were other people. The point is that people came there, and from the middle to the late 1800s through the 20s, there was a slow trickle of people, and as slowly people started just taking shit, and it got more and more accelerated and more and more accelerated. The bottom line is that a safe haven cannot be built on oppressing others, because then it is not safe, because the oppressed
At all
will fight back. So what do you do? I don't know, but about the land there is now, you know, there's a couple of idiots online, and I feel comfortable calling them idiots, who talk about what really needs to happen is give Palestine all the land back and expel all of the Jews that are there back to Europe. First of all, go fuck yourself.
That's not going to work, because there's already been at least 2 to 3 generations of people who've been born there. They don't know anywhere else.
Migration is genocide, and the response to a genocide that has already occurred is not to commit a competing genocide. So we're not going to fucking expel anybody else. We're talking about what needs to happen is essentially a single state, call it whatever the fuck you want, because there is this fantasy of a 2-state solution isn't a solution.
Yeah.
It isn't a second state, and they have said repeatedly, vociferously, that there will not be a second state. It's like, well, every time they try to come to the table, you know, Palestine doesn't want to get, because they don't want to codify the shit you already stole for the last 60 years. They do not want to accept that we're just going to take all the stuff you've already taken over the past 60 years and probably just violate it again later. There's a history here. So what needs to happen is a single fucking state with democratic rights for all and protections for all ethnicities, religions, and everybody, and the fucking franchise for everyone who lives there. But that part, it would require another reconstruction, and no one has the power to do that. Israel is its own country. It's not like we can go in and make it happen. So this is just going to continue to happen. A series of
it's going to be a cycle of hostilities, ceasefire, some terrorist bullshit happens, and then the hostilities kick up again. All the while, the entire time, there's just low-key bullshit. There's low-key bullshit in the background, you know, more filling up of people's wells with concrete, more killing their sheep in the road, more destroying their olive trees that may have been part of the family for generations. Yeah, just that usual bullshit.
Boy, you know, they should, you know, focus all the money that comes into building infrastructure. I'm like, they try. There's a permitting process. They're required to get permission from Israel to build infrastructure
to buy anything
in Gaza. And you know what happens? It either gets denied or you fuckers destroy it. So, it's one of these things that I would complain about being tired of talking about it, but people are dying, so it seems horrible to complain about it.
Yeah.
What I'm complaining about is having to re-explain to people that legitimate criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism, because that's not how things work. Because a state isn't its people. And the problem when you develop an ethno-state is that they have people like Netanyahu and his predecessors have rendered it so that reflexively, culturally in the United States, when you criticize Israel, people are saying, you are criticizing Jews. I'm like, motherfucker, you are not speaking on behalf. I especially know this because almost every single Jewish person I know is anti-Zionist. Not everyone.
Yeah. Not exactly.
Especially because, you know, ethnicities aren't a monolith. I feel like we all know this. But again, most people I know who are Jewish are anti-Zionist. So enough with that fucking shit. But that's just it. The UNRWA thing just drove me nuts because when the report came out that 12 people in UNRWA might have been involved in 10/7, my first thought was, I mean, that's probably true. They do employ a lot of people, and we'll see what happens. I waited to see what the follow-up was, what the corroboration,
and there wasn't one.
Especially because in the past, Israel has said, do not support these aid NGOs because they have ties to Hamas, and then it turned out
every time
no evidence, and some of it was lies. And then, of course, there was the Shireen Abu Akleh, which is just the most recent example of blatant lies. Until the shit with the hospital, when they put out, here's the proof that it was a Hamas rocket. That video is from somewhere else.
That video from somewhere else, first of all, and second of all, didn't y'all build that actual tunnels yourselves?
I want to try to get a message to Joe Biden that there are Hamas tunnels under Navient. And if you could just tell them that, like, Navient and Advantage, and if you could just wipe out like, the chain of title of all of these.
Or we could just check under, some medical debt collectors, maybe.
So, like, speaking, Ned Lamont had just bought billions worth of medical debt for millions.
Okay.
Was it Connecticut? I think it was the governor of Connecticut. Fuck! I wish I knew. New England. I don't care. And again, my apologies to my friends who live in New England.
Yeah.
If you're not Massachusetts, you're one of the other states. I don't give a shit. I'm sorry, but also I'm not. I mean.
They coddled Tom Brady for over a decade. I think.
That cry baby fucking loser who wouldn't shake anyone's hand. Oh my god.
I'm just gonna say
my second most hated sports icon.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. I will always, no matter how annoying he is, there is a small part of me that will stand two men no matter what. I will always stand Carson Wentz and Eli Manning. I will always stand them. They killed the witch in the big game when it mattered. And I love them for it. I will always love them for it.
Peyton has better comedic timing though.
Yeah, you're right. I gotta give it that Peyton's had his more experience. Eli's the better rapper if you give him good enough, if you give him a good enough lead time. But Peyton is genuinely funnier. And they got a nephew that just got, like, I think he got into Ole Miss or somewhere.
Who cares? He's like the bonus Jonas. No one fucking cares.
I'm like, there's going to be another generation of Mannings in the league. I don't know how people feel about that, but no one.
Let's talk about the next generation of Kelseys. Like Jason Kelce. Man.
I want his daughter on a sideline. I do not care. I want Jason Kelce's kid on a sideline. I want Jason Kelce's daughter and Eli Manning's daughter on a sideline.
I have lived in Pennsylvania for 31 of my 38 years. And, I mean, born and raised here, but for a short stint in Delaware, Pennsylvania's my home. It's, the United States used to be, there's that, it's cliche, but the United States used to be these United States. It's the United States. People don't identify as much with their state.
Yeah.
As much as they used to, but I am pretty proud of Pennsylvania.
If you're from Florida, do you really want to identify with that shit?
You still got the keys.
This is true.
I mean, Pennsylvania.
And I really shouldn't talk because I literally have 305 tattooed on my forearm in binary code. But I'm like, well, 305.
That's the thing. Area codes don't matter much anymore now that people are just keeping their phone numbers after they move.
It still matters. Having
landlines are getting phased out. There are some companies that are saying they're not going to support them much anymore.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a cool relic from the past, which is why I had it in the old retro style print. That way you can see it, you know.
I will say that there's going to be a generation in the future who won't understand the whole 313 thing from 8 Mile.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to have to explain that. We're going to have to explain area codes to these children. Well, let me get my Werther's out.
Here, where's my bowl of hard candy?
Yep, let me get my Werther's out. We're gonna have to sit them around. Like the other day, someone posted an old photo of Don Shula and Marv Levy, and they're like, "Oh my God, y'all used to have such drip," and I'm like, "I have now officially felt my bones wither away. My bones have turned into dust and blown away. What the fuck? Y'all want these fucking starter jackets now? They're trying to bring back starter jackets.
Next month is the 20th anniversary of Shaun of the Dead.
Shut your mouth. This is worse than me. We're constantly reminding people that Kurt Loder is nearly 80. Reminding people of Kurt Loder's age every year on his birthday.
What's worse is you used to be able to say, wow, Kurt Loder from MTV is now in his 50s, 60s, 70s. And now you say Kurt Loder from MTV, and they're like, what? Who from what?
Who? Yeah, like I'm now just like, the fact that now you can't, and I've had this conversation, like Eckerd, you can't, like, if you are from South Florida, you bring up Eckerd, they're gonna be like, what?
The drugstore?
Yeah. See, that's how you know, like, when you know somebody, like, she too young for you, she don't know about Eckerd. Do you really want to mess with her? She too young for you. She don't remember that Marky Mark used to be a rapper. Oh, and that he has a rap sheet for that time that he blinded a Vietnamese man, or that time that he threw sand at black children, threw rocks at black children at the beach.
Man, he could play John Fetterman in that biopic. What?
Mark Wahlberg ain't nothing but about what, 5'8" on a good day?
I'm just saying the whole blinding black children thing is up Fetterman's alley.
Screaming, crying, shitting, throwing up. I can't. Oh my God. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm shocked for once. Yo, you read Senator you know what, but he deserves it though. I mean,
well, there was that thing he posted about, people criticizing Israel, and he talked about Hamas's systematic rape of Israelis. And I'm like, would you doubt that Hamas committed rape during the raid? It's the.
Do we really
deny that the IDF has?
Doesn't have a rape problem? Are we really? Like, we really gonna do that today?
Like, whenever there is war and atrocities, rape is kind of a thing that happens. But if you're going to try to pull that thing that Netanyahu does is called the Hamas rapist regime, and I'm like, hey, have you talked to your IDF agents lately and what they do in those little prisons where they keep?
And have you talked to some of the female soldiers that y'all trot out on TikTok? Have you? Have you talked to some of the singers that y'all trot out and compare Gaza to a dirty black woman? Yeah, no. Meanwhile, I'm like, what do I do? What the fuck? Where are we going with this? I ain't even done nothing. Some of us are even Jewish by injection. What the fuck, bro? Yeah, I said it. You might want to have another drink. You were like, oh no, she did the thing again.
Also, Toby Keith died.
Okay. Well, am I allowed to share this little anecdote?
Am I pouring one out for Toby Keith, or
No, you are not.
Pouring one out because there's a difference. So here's the thing about Toby Keith. I don't think he's an evil person. I don't think he's despicable or anything like that. He's just a run-of-the-mill piece of shit. Stomach cancer is a horrible fucking way to die.
It really is. No, that's we can't deny that.
All the same, fuck him. I don't care.
Yeah. Actually, what we're going to do is I'm going to bring up someone else though. Chris Christopherson. Chris Christopherson, I mean, he is a relic of the 70s, and I mean relic in actually the kindest way possible.
Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, one of the greatest fucking movies of the 70s. Martin Scorsese can do it is the movie that told the world that, oh, this guy can just do whatever.
Yeah. This is a man who studied his way from his local college to Oxford and became a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. My dad don't like a lot of white people.
Yeah,
he does love him, but he does love Chris Christopherson. He don't like a lot of white people, but no, Chris Christopherson. He there is some respect there, and I understand that.
Look, I won't ask if I'm invited to the cookout, but I will ask, will he spare me when the revolution comes?
My father I probably could talk him out. I could probably talk him out of aiming his anger elsewhere. We'll see. All right, so this is a semi-famous anecdote, as supposedly witnessed by Ethan Hawke. I don't know. People have said that this story is not true. People have said that it is. It was printed in Rolling Stone, and you do with that information as you will. All right. So, standing backstage at the Beacon Theater in New York, leaning against a crumbling brick wall in the dark, I could barely see Chris Christopherson standing to my left. Willie Nelson was in the shadows to my right. Ray Charles was standing beside Willie, idly shifting his weight back and forth.
I'm already jealous that he was in the room.
I know, I'm already sick. Like, Ethan?
Charles was a childhood hero. Before I even knew music, the whole wider world of music, I had a Ray Charles cassette that I wore the fucking shit out of.
One of my best burlesque numbers was to Nighttime is the Right Time.
Hey, come on! Do you know how many times I played what I said? I played that. I fucking ruined that cassette. I had Ray
All
Charles,
I know is that I've been to,
and I had Queen, and those were the three cassettes.
That all I know is that is it really a good 1950s swing dance party if what I say is not played at least once? Is it?
No, and you know what? It's funny because I said I had Ray Charles, Chuck Berry, and Queen, and for a second I was going to say Queen is kind of really the odd man out, but then again, Freddie Mercury is a really flamboyantly enthusiastic non-white frontman. He fits in the...
Yeah, he's a part of that. A bit further along the wall were Elvis Costello, Wyclef Jean, Nora Jones, Shelby Lynn, Paul Simon, and their respective managers, friends, and family. Everybody was nervous and tight. I appreciate him saying that. We were there for Willie Nelson's 70th birthday concert in 2003. Up from the basement came one of country music's brightest stars, who shall remain nameless. At that moment in time, the star had a monster radio hit about bombing America's enemies back to the Stone Age. Happy birthday, the star said to Willie, breezing by us as he passed Christopherson in one long, confident stride. Out of the corner of his mouth came, none of that lefty shit out there tonight, Chris. What the fuck did you say to me? It says luck, but I have a feeling Chris Christopherson did not say, what the luck did you say to me? I have a feeling he said, what the fuck did you just say to me? Chris growled, stepping forward. Oh no, groaned Willie under his breath. Don't get Chris all riled up. You heard me, the star said, walking away from the darkness. Don't turn your back to me, boy. Christopherson shouted, not giving a shit that basically the entire music industry seemed to be flanking him. The star turned around. I don't want any problems, Chris. I just want you to tone it down. You ever wore your country's uniform? Chris asked rhetorically. What? Don't what me, boy? You heard the question. You just don't like the answer. He paused just long enough to get a full chest of air. I asked, have you ever served your country? The full answer is no, you have not. Have you ever killed another man, huh? Have you ever taken another man's life, then cashed the check your country gave you for doing it? No, you have not. So shut the fuck up. I could feel his body pulsing with anger next to me. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Whatever, the young star muttered. Ray Charles stood motionless. Willie Nelson looked at me and shrugged mischievously like a kid in the back of the classroom. Christopherson took a deep inhale and leaned against the wall, still vibrating with adrenaline. He looked over at Willie as if to say, don't say a word. Then his eyes found me. You know what Waylon Jennings says about guys like him? He whispered. I shook my head. They're doing a country music what pantyhose did to finger fucking. Like I said, this is a famous anecdote. I don't know how true it is. It was published in Rolling Stone. It's from Ethan Hawke. So in a larger article about Chris Christopherson, I believe that is an elegant eulogy to Toby Keith.
Chris Christopherson's tales of being badass motherfucker are wide and varied. There is the tale of when someone sent him to get
I've heard that he piloted a helicopter onto Johnny Cash's front lawn.
That sounds badass.
You're like, that sounds badass. That's the one I've heard. I don't know how true that is, but that's the one I heard.
But there's the tale of when Sinead O'Connor was being booed like crazy. Someone
told
Chris Christopherson to go out and get her off the stage, and he just went out there and I don't know his exact word, but basically said, "Don't you let these fuckers,
destroy you." And I honestly believe now that I also believe Chris Christopherson would have did.
Here's the thing, for anybody watching this, and we still get like 10 to 15 views. God bless all of you.
Every single one of y'all.
If you have not, Chris Christopherson
he's outlived Toby Keith, hilariously enough.
So have Natalie Maines and but no, Chris Christopherson was in a little movie called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which was the source of the 70s sitcom Alice. But the movie is a really, I presume,
darker.
A little bit. It's pretty hard. It deals with domestic abuse in a pretty straight-on fashion. Still a little oblique. It doesn't show the worst of it, but for a movie made in the 70s and directed... what I will say is Chris Christopherson was incredible in it. He's only in about half to a third of the movie, or a third to a half. But he's incredible in it. He's a man who could have done a lot more acting if he wanted, but he really didn't.
Yeah.
But Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore is one of those movies that tells the story of just a very complicated, messy woman going through a messy period of her life, trying to live up to her dreams, not really living up to it, but fuck it, she's a real fucking person. It's one of these movies that I think everybody does need to see. It's a difficult subject matter. Mm-hmm. It does deal with domestic abuse, and to an extent, it could be triggering to some people. It doesn't show the worst of it, but it shows enough. And if you have a problem with that, with dealing with that, don't watch it. But if you can stomach it, I really would. It's a great movie. Chris Christopherson is incredible. And what I will say is, if you're a casual moviegoer and you think of Martin Scorsese as one of these filmmakers who has a niche and sticks with it, the reason he's my favorite filmmaker of all time is because that is emphatically not true.
Yeah.
The man has worked in,
a lot of different genres. People kind of sleep on it, but it's true.
And if you want to put it in crude terms, he was one of the originators of the quote chick flick, so to speak, with Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. There is a lot about sisterhood and about finding the people in your life that support you, and dealing with tragedy, dealing with adversity, dealing with trauma. Chris Christopherson is a large part of what makes that movie work, and that's not to take away from Diane. It's not to take away from any other aspect of it, but we're talking about Chris Christopherson. Yeah. For that alone, I would see that movie. If domestic violence and abuse is triggering for you, don't. But the broader point is, I think you should know from Dallas and I at this point, we love movies. And Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore is one of the greatest movies of the 70s. If I had a list of like the greatest 100 movies of all time, it'd be on that list.
Yeah.
It may not, it may be in the 90s, but it'd be on that fucking list. It is near perfect. It is incredible. And I would see it. And Martin Scorsese is a filmmaker. If you're thinking of him as someone who only deals with movies about organized crime, you need to see every fucking thing he's made.
Yeah, he doesn't just do mob films. While they are good, while some of his mob films are good, I have risked my bedtime to watch Casino at least 3 times.
And Silence is...
But I would like to see Silence because I did read the book.
Silence is my favorite movie he's ever done. And what I will say is it's really hard to have a movie that's 2.5 hours or more. This is 2 hours and 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make me at least once think about the fact that I'm watching a movie.
Oh, wow.
And like this one, and I don't want to talk it up too much because I don't think people would have the same experience I did, but I will say that I was never not enraptured with it. It's heartbreaking. And as someone who's had a complicated relationship with their own faith,
mm-hmm.
The story of somebody's personal relationship with their faith, in being brought up in a universe where faith is not supposed to be personal. I think it's a very beautiful movie. But in everything he fucking does is beautiful. Fucking Shutter Island, gothic horror masterpiece.
Most people don't immediately think of it as gothic horror, but I understand why Shutter Island would fall under that filing.
It does for me. It is horror. I just, people might lump it into psychological horror, but I think...
Yeah, most of the people I've heard who've watched Shutter Island, most of the people who I know that have liked Shutter Island, they usually just simply file it under psychological horror and go on with their day. But I do see where you would say gothic, because anytime you throw in an insane asylum, we're going gothic, sir. That is like is it really like in other words, the argument can at least be made of Shutter Island gothic horror. Yeah,
the criticism I get the most is people saying you could see the twist coming the whole time. Like, that's not the twist. That's not the fucking twist. You're supposed to worry about what's coming. You are supposed to feel Oh God, please no. I don't want that to be what's happening. You are
Yeah.
supposed to hate that what is going to happen is going to happen. The twist is not the twist. The twist is after the twist.
Twist is more what happens to you after you see it, actually.
The twist was the friends we made along the way. Fucking Hugo. Fucking Hugo. Can we talk about what a masterpiece of a love letter to cinema Hugo is?
No one really. People always forget that that's part of that's a Martin Scorsese joint. Like, I'm like, yes, there is finally a Scorsese film you can take your kids to.
We can
That
talk
one.
about, like, there needs to be. He made a children's movie that is a movie for anybody, and that is the kind of shit that just doesn't happen anymore. Even Pixar very rarely makes a children's movie.
I will say this: Disney leans into we all go into group therapy. That's basically how their premise is. Like Turning Red and Encanto, that was group therapy. That was group therapy in the form of a movie, and I get with it. I fucks with it, but yeah, it's like I compare those films to The Smell of a Hotel. You look forward to it, but after about 6 days, you're done.
WALL-E was the last Pixar movie that I thought worked as just cinema. And that's not to say that there isn't quality in what they have produced since. There's plenty of quality. But WALL-E legitimately is the last thing that I think worked as a piece of art that can stand in the pantheon of great filmmaking.
I can see why you'd say that, because there's a lot of good world building in it. There's wonderful world building in it. That
also, I haven't seen Coco and Encanto. I haven't seen like the last 4 or 5. So when people say they're great movies, I can't speak from a position of knowledge about it.
I let's put it like this. I saw Encanto and I'm just like, I'm gonna need a hug and like a drink after, because that shit hit. Nah, man, that shit hit hard.
Oh, you know what? I did see the one about the like where the two brothers, they had a van in the beginning of the pandemic. Like they were like, it was like a fantasy.
Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about, and my brain can't. It had Chris Pratt in it. Yeah, yes. I know exactly which one you're talking about. I have seen.
It was in the haze of the early days of the pandemic when they were releasing shit in theaters. I did see that.
Yeah, and they had one character that was lesbian, and nobody was okay. And they didn't even like. I'm like, she ain't even doing nothing.
Queer people existing is now a conspiracy per Elon Musk.
Listen, I don't know if I really want. Listen, that could be the ketamine talking for him. I said what I said. That could be the ketamine talking. I mean, and as far as conspiracies go, the one that's still getting me is the fact that Fox thinks that there's a whole conspiracy with fucking Taylor Swift.
So we got there. In a roundabout way, we got there. Yeah, Taylor Swift. She is going to, after the Super Bowl, I'm unclear on whether the idea is that the Chiefs have to win or they have to lose for for power or sympathy. But either way, she comes down and she endorses Biden at the end of it. And that's going to suck.
What?
Like, first of all,
if that's what they're scared of her doing, they made it sound like she was going to sacrifice a lot, that she was going to give birth to a baby and abort it at the 50-yard line.
For her to endorse Biden and have it mean anything, it would have to come like 3 days before the election, not like 8 months.
Like, ma'am, I mean, will she? Probably. Don't know. That's not my problem. But I mean, they're like, I'm gonna put it like this. When it comes to Taylor Swift, I only consider her as a fellow human being and nothing much else. A lot of people I don't like her. That does not make me like her. That makes me understand that there are horrible people who genuinely don't like anybody that does not fit into their, that genuinely don't like anybody, even feminine presenting cis het white women that don't
The
act the
enemy of
way they
my
want them
enemy is
to.
not necessarily my friend, but I do tend to
Exactly.
look more sympathetically on based on the people who hate her.
Exactly. I tend to be very much like, I look at her and I realize, listen, a lot of trash and wastrel people hate you. That don't mean I like you. That just means when things like someone makes an AI of you getting gang raped, I'm going to report that shit. When people say that you eat babies, I'm going to say, really? You actually believe that? That sounds dumb. When you, in other words, I'm never going to buy your merch. I'm never going to go to your shows, but I am going to at least be like, I have no actual literal problem with Taylor Swift.
Evermore and
None.
Folklore are fine albums.
I
I
don't
don't
even,
really have a
let's
care
put it like,
much of.
my like of Taylor Swift's actual music comes to one set of lines in one fucking song.
It's me. I'm the problem. It's me.
Yes, that line is everything. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Like that just hits me where I live. I'm not saying I enjoy being the problem. I'm just saying I know I'm the problem and I like that shit.
I
I
don't have a
mean,
problem with artists whose music all sounds the same because, to an extent, I mean, yes, there's some varied shit in their catalog, but Iron Maiden, one of my favorite bands, 90% of their songs follow a formula that involves them doing a riff in E minor with the same exact distortion and guitar tone each time. I can differentiate them because I'm a huge fan, but the casual listener can fucking not. AC/DC, same thing. I'm a fan. I can differentiate everything through 1981.
oh
And I
wow.
understand. But the casual radio listener outside of 3 songs cannot. When
Oh
people
wow.
levy that criticism against Taylor Swift, I feel the same way. I'm not a fan, but I'm not going to criticize her on that because there are a lot of people who
Who do
immediately
the same.
can tell what song is what song. Um, so that criticism always rings hollow to me, and it's kind of the same. Like,
Yeah.
it's easy to make fun of Nickelback for having songs that all sound alike. I think the
Yeah.
issue is like, what does it fucking mean? And the people and the type of people who hate Taylor Swift tell me that she's not a problem. Because if these are the fucking people who hate them, and if these are the
Mhm.
reasons they hate her, guys, let her fucking be. She's
That
not
part.
hurting anybody. I've liked
That
2
part.
albums she made. I haven't listened to them more than 2 or 3 times. And I do say 2 or 3 times. I listen to a lot of fucking music over and over again. That's me. So 2 or 3 times for me is somebody else's once.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't pick a song out of a lineup outside of there's a song called Happiness I really like. And it doesn't matter. Point is, um, the criticisms that she gets all fall fucking flat to me, except I think we talked about this in the beginning. I can't remember if we were recording yet or not. She kind of capitalized off that Kanye West Beyonce shit in a way that made me feel a little uncomfortable.
And the whole dating Maddie Healy thing. Those are the only two. Exactly. And then
I
finding
forgot
out.
about that. Ugh.
Yeah. That, and many people who
I
believe
fucking hate
in.
the 1975, by the way. I just fucking hate
I
it.
have other issues with Maddie Healy, mostly the fact that he openly admits that he totally loves degradation porn, especially if it features Black women. Good times. So that's always fun.
Why?
Yeah. And I'm
Why
like,
even open your fucking mouth? Like,
yeah.
It's just like, you just volunteered that, motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's just like that story, like when John Mayer did that Playboy interview where he said the N-word, and it was just like, you did that interview because you thought, hey, I wonder if I say the N-word, it can be in a way that people will not hate me for. And you tried it, and it didn't work because people pretty much assumed that you're just an asshole. Like, maybe, it's just, maybe, like, fuck you, John
Yeah.
Mayer. Maybe fuck you,
Yeah.
Matt Healy.
Yeah. And the fact that even though she never openly admitted dating him, it's the fact that they were linked together long enough. And the moment she felt that she needed to, she had the collab with Ice Spice, which didn't go anywhere. And then right after that, she dates Travis Kelce. Now you can understand why some people are like, some people who may not hate her may actually just be like, I find her highly sus. And I get that too.
I just Matt Healy though. What?
She's had, like, not all of her partners have been questionable.
I wouldn't even be his fucking friend. Like that, like, like, I'm sorry. And like, this is from somebody who, look, I am not ashamed to admit I tried to make music into something that could be a career. I played a show that I got paid for once in my life as part of a band. It didn't go anywhere. I'm not talented enough for it. But all the same, if I ran across Matt Healy and he could do something for me, I still wouldn't be his fucking friend.
Damn. That's fair. I can't even be mad about that. At all. Damn. But yeah, no. So, I mean, like I said, I don't hate Taylor Swift, but I would probably, you couldn't call me a Swiftie in a million years.
If we want to talk about, people who I think speak to me as a musician who I really like, there's Elizabeth Stokes, who is the lead singer, primary songwriter for this New Zealand band called the Beths. Incredible. I mean, their music is just it's owes in large part to their production and the layering and the writing outside of the songs, but the lyrics and the blueprint of the song itself is great. But I think people would try to think, I'm sorry, but like that, I think if I had to choose, between Taylor Swift, who speaks to so many people, I'd say try the Beths. Trust me. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And all the shit with, like, going on with, I wish the world of success that Taylor Swift has, all the shit with Nicki Minaj and Ben Shapiro, I wish that Megan Thee Stallion, she's already got so much fame, but I want her to have Taylor Swift level fame, because frankly,
that'd be fun.
When I listen to, I don't remember the name of the song that she released as her first independent single.
Cobra.
I love Cobra. Cobra was
I loved
great.
Cobra. Cobra was amazing.
Like, whoever was playing guitar was like, I'm going to do some Brian May style shit. This sounds like Brian May playing guitar. But Cobra was very rock oriented. I like that. I love Cobra. I also love the song she did called "Crying in the Car," and the reason I love, and I'm talking as a white person who can't identify with the racial aspects of identity that she is personally speaking to, but as far as the emotional aspect, she has this aspect of her writing where there are a lot of people who said, I've been through some shit, it made me strong. She has this added bit to it, which is, fuck you for having
to make me have to do this.
Yeah.
Fuck you for making me have to do this.
Because you're a fucking asshole. And fuck you for making me have to be this strong. And I'm like, she went that extra mile and expressed it in music in a way that was so palpable that it's just like, you finally said the shit that a lot of people write the song like, I've been through some shit, I'm strong, this is inspiring. she's
No.
inspiring, but she's also saying, like,
you shouldn't be doing this to me. You shouldn't be doing this to me. You shouldn't be forcing me to do this.
Fuck you.
Basically, like right now, somebody posted Tori in a text message group chat. I retweeted it and I'm like, I'm not in California, so I don't have standing. But hey, if you are, you might want to snitch. Yeah, I was one of those people who wanted to listen. Tory Lanez deserves no mercy from me.
How much longer
Tory
is he
Lanez,
on the sentence?
I think he's got like 15 years.
Oh, poor bitch. All right.
I'm not really. It is what it is. Well, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. He got parents. They'll put money on his books.
There was an element, I think, that some people who, and it came from disingenuous people who were clearly in the pocket for Troy against Meghan, and not people who actually cared about criminal justice reform, who were talking about another black man in prison. It's like, yeah, but it's him.
Yeah, but
like, I get what you're saying on a societal, systemic issue.
Exactly, but yeah.
But also, fuck him.
Yeah, but he shot her in the foot. He really did do that. He really did do that. And Meghan actually did her best to not want to get him in too much trouble, but it became too apparent for her not to let, you know, she couldn't sit there and let him get away with that.
Well, we are
way over time.
Yeah, we are way over time. But I think the moral of the story is fuck Republican hypocrisy. Fuck people who think that criticism of Israel automatically makes you an anti-Semite or a supporter of Hamas. No, fuck Hamas. It's a bunch of bullshit. And as much as Taylor Swift is the epitome of white feminism, the people who hate her are just terrible.
Are worse.
And so I think that's the moral of the story today.
Yeah.
We will be back next week.
Hopefully we can dig Eric up. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, come on. The Super Bowl will have happened by... Wait, no, it won't.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
Wait, no. Today's the 6th.
Yeah, Super Bowl is the 11th.
Jesus. All right. Well, next week we need to get a post-mortem on the Super Bowl and find out if Taylor Swift really did come down and endorse Joe Biden. But we also need to find out if the rematch has yielded any different results. I'm personally thinking that Kansas City is going to pull it off because, I mean, look, I got friends who have loyalty to the 49ers, but, I mean, like, come on. I'm a Pennsylvanian, and if my team can't be in the Super Bowl, then I got to go with the other Kelsey's team. So, all
right.
Good night, everybody. We will see you next week. Good night.
Night.